everyone in.
Yeah. Maybe one more minute and we can just kick off.
Mhm.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Harry from Blue Dot Impact. This is our weekly webinar series with people working at AI safety organizations. Today's session is on how generalists actually get into AI safety. And we've got three generalists from Apollo, Constellation, and FAR.AI in conversation with Oliver from London Initiative for Safe AI. We'll run a moderated discussion for about 30 minutes. Then we'll field some of the top Slido questions for 15 minutes. I will send that Slido link in chat right now. All questions will be through the Slido, and then this session is being recorded. It will go up on the Blue Dot YouTube within a few days. And with that, I'll hand it over to Oliver, who will be moderating.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you on a Friday evening or Friday morning, depending where you are. We're just kind of brief intro. We're hosting this panel because we want to add in a little bit more transparency of how to get into generalist and ops roles in AI safety. What can be the biggest differentiator when it comes to applying there? Why is it important and fundamental, not only as a backbone for research support, but for building individual infrastructure and scaling the orgs? And without further ado, we're going to start from a round of brief intros. Yordanos, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's exciting to see so many of you. I'm glad we're doing this, given the interest. I'm Yordanos, like Oliver mentioned. I am currently heading people and talent at FAR, and I come from a background working mostly in tech, in for-profit, and some nonprofits in the education and community building arenas. And I've been with FAR for about 14 months now, building out our ability to scale as well as our function across people, so onboarding, culture, talent, and really also strengthening our infrastructure and processes for hiring. So quite relevant for our discussion today, and excited to share any insights that can help demystify the entry to AI safety and how to really make your journeys easier. So excited for your questions and the discussion.
Thank you so much. Next up is Joping.
Hi guys. I see a very active channel, a chat going on. So good job everyone. I'm Joping and I lead people operations in Apollo Research. For those who are not familiar with us, Apollo Research focuses on mitigating catastrophic risk and doing more research in scheming behaviors, dangerous behaviors in AI, and understanding how we can mitigate that. And we are also building products around monitoring and control. My background is that I have about 10 years of experience in HR across different domains. So I relocated from Singapore to London for the role with Apollo. I was in the Singapore Public Service before. I was with a e-commerce scale up, and I was with Boston Consulting Group working on digital venture build arm when I was there. My entry into AI safety is a rather rare one. And I would love to share more about that today. And the last 14 months that I've been with Apollo, I've been focusing on scaling the org and hiring and defining what our value proposition is. And then in the later half of my journey, I've been focused on evolving our operating model into a for-profit, from a non-profit to a for-profit. And now we are expanding into San Francisco, US. So you can see there's a good variety of things that I've been working on so far.
Thank you very much. We are basically both present all across the world. So Helena will take upon her intro from California.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Helena. I am a program coordinator at Constellation. Constellation is a very big, or, well, um, it's an important role in the AI safety community. They host the Constellation office, which, like Redwood, um, Meter, some coefficient giving people and other orgs work out of. They also host programs like Astra and other events like Recursive. And I am currently program coordinating for the Generator Residency. So, bit background about me. It probably represent like more of the junior side of the pipeline, maybe. Um, I currently go to UC Irvine, study math, and yeah. Yeah, I guess I could speak a little bit more about how I got into AI safety. I got into AI safety somewhat recently, like about 2 years ago, and I also run the AI safety group at UCI. You can check it out, AI safety, UCI.org. But yeah, represent. Uh, but yeah, I'd love to like maybe talk more about the junior side of things, I guess.
Thank you so much. Just also a brief hello from me. Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm a head of special projects at LISA, London Initiative for Safe AI. And we do a bunch of things. I'm most passionate or bullish on field building right now, and this is why I'm here. At LISA, we're hosting such orgs as Apollo, Blue Dot, and IAPS. They have our offices with us. At the same time, we go around and have a lot of fellowships and programs happening at all the time from Arena, Pivotal, Lasser, and Tarbell, many of you which you have heard of. My previous background is not in AI safety at all. I did basically computational biology and physics all of my life on the academic side. I dropped out of my PhD last year because I got convinced enough to work on X risks. And all of my career run has been in deep tech VC. So I'm also quite answer to AI safety, but it's been an exciting run here. Harry, do you want to just briefly also have a few words about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Harry. I do events at Blue Dot, but I'm also doing the Generator residency this summer as a resident, which Helena is coordinating. So I might chime in with some stuff about that, but otherwise, I'll leave it to you all.
Great. Okay, we're ready to kick off with just some initial, I guess, like general questions around the theme. Then afterwards, we will move on to the most popular Slido questions. And again, we are saving some time for the live feed questions at the very end. We're gonna kick things off with trying to understand what defines a good generalist and how different those qualities are for AI safety org specifically versus the rest of the industry, whether it's tech and policy. Yordanos, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. So, a bit background on my journey, and I'll tie it to this question. I did my undergrad in English literature thinking I was going to law. That didn't happen, as you could see from my LinkedIn profile. I went into recruiting and program management, community building and organizing, and that led to about a decade of experience in research, writing, program development and management, recruiting, people. So I've had what you would call a portfolio of experiences and background, and I would consider myself a true generalist in that sense. And when I decided to shout out to Yep, yes, good to see the familiar faces. So when I considered journey into AI safety, it wasn't a matter of I need to package myself or think of myself as a different generalist. More so, how do I understand the mission and the value that drives these organizations and find that alignment? And so back to the question Oliver asked, a generalist is really a true portfolio professional. What that means is you have different skill sets to contribute to any org, whether that is an EA or AI safety, policy, governance, but you can scale up or down as well, depending on the needs of the organization. And you can roll up your sleeve, do what it takes to really help push those missions forward. And what it really takes when you join, whether it's an early stage startup or an AI safety org, they're usually at the earlier stages. And so you have to think of yourself I don't want to use this cliched metaphor, but the Swiss Army knife, you've heard of it probably. You can flex your muscles in different categories and in different areas. And when there isn't a clear owner, you can jump in and provide that clarity and structure. And generalists can really offer that across the board. So AI safety policy governance, what matters is understand what the org needs and how your skills and experiences and background can really translate to that to provide the solutions that will help the org scale up. So, in the simplest manner, there isn't a difference in a generalist that is operating in the tech world versus an AI safety or governance. And if you're able to, be agile and operate in ambiguity, that's really a true generalist that can operate in many different fields. I'm
And do
going
you
to see if
mind if
there are,
should I add on? Is that
yeah,
okay?
add on.
Okay.
I'm seeing if there are any questions or comments. John is saying you might be a generalist if your default answer to someone should, as I got it. Yes, that's a good way to also add to it. You're jumping in. You don't wait for others. When there's ambiguity, you're the person that can provide the clarity.
I think I broadly agree with Yordanos' views. And I also want to say that I think my experience with Apollo is quite specific, and I would be be careful about like generalizing it with the rest based on my experience. But I'm going to share it anyway, and then you guys pick and choose which one you think relates to your personal circumstances more. So in my case, I think the needs that Apollo had at the time when they were looking at hiring for someone was scaling the organization as the key priority, and someone who knew how to hire and someone who would bring in like best practices. So in that regard, I think they were optimizing and prioritizing for someone who already had that skill and could run with it. And they were quite pragmatic about that. And to that at that point, they didn't require like an AI safety background. So I think that was a lot of the reasons why I managed to kind of secure the role. I would say speaking to the leadership yesterday and also asking them for inputs, and I didn't want to work in a vacuum. I wanted to validate the things I understood were the right ones. What they thought generalized quite well for people in an operator role was that you would be like well organized, you are very on top of things, and you're constantly thinking about how you could make other people's life easier and taking things off their plates, especially people from the technical teams. What I didn't think that was the same from coming from outside the AI safety world is that I feel people in the outside of AI safety world have a higher tolerance for bureaucracy. Um, Generally. And I think there's less intention about thinking for about impact and like counterfactuals and having that vocabulary and speaking in that way. And also generally just reasoning about like and being truth seeking. So for example, after joining Apollo, I think I became very comfortable saying that I feel uncertain about this thing because I don't have enough information, and this is what I'm going to do to find it, and that's broadly accepted. Whereas the places I came from um are generally not accepting of this kind of ways of thinking about uncertainties.
Thank you so much for both of your insights. I agree. And I think in general, being a generalist, especially in AI safety and early orgs, is pretty much like operating in a startup environment where you really have to get a hold of everything you can at the beginning. The landscape is ever evolving, so there are a lot of new challenges that rise up every time that you cannot trace. So I think just staying agile, staying on your feet, and be open-minded about what you're about to encounter is great. I would like to move on to the next question. A lot of you either heard about EA or engaged with EA before, but what is really effective altruism? Well, we're in London hosting EAG Global next week, with many of you likely being there. But essentially, effective altruism, for you who are not familiar, is basically a philosophy that's uniting a movement of doing and giving the best we can with our time, money, resources for tackling specific X risks and S risks problems in the world. The next question is for Helena. How much background do you think you would need, or someone would need in considering generalist roles on EA and AI safety in general prior to considering joining AI safety orgs?
Yeah. So first of all, a lot, if not a very large majority of AI safety orgs are very EA motivated. It's kind of, or like, probably a couple of years ago, it was kind of fringe, or like it was taking weird ideas seriously to take AI safety seriously. People wouldn't have taken it seriously unless they were maybe EA or like came from a background where like what are very big problems that could probably impact lots of people. Yeah, AI safety was one of them, not like in the common zeitgeist or like Overton window of thought, but hence why they are kind of the big ones now. And hence why you could see a lot of people that work there are like pretty EA flavored. Yeah, all that to say, I think a huge and maybe underrated part of hiring is value alignment, and especially like looking for apps for like generator residency and stuff. We care a lot about value alignment, and that's something that you can't convey extremely easily in your resume. I don't know, like it's also kind of weird to put like I'm an EA in like huge letters in your resume, but there are ways to show that you're value aligned. And especially in the interview too, it's like you can show that. And another like super helpful thing, like you mentioned, Oliver, is going to the EAGs and going to the events and actually personally meeting people and showing them like, hey, like this is stuff I really care about, and showing how ambitious and how ambitious and how excited you are to like work on a problem. I think conversely, like you can also show like value alignment being very important means you could also show very bad value alignment, and like that's something that you might want to consider. I think that is much harder to train than be like, hey, read, take a Blue Dot course. You can like read the whole thing. Some people can go through the whole thing and still like not completely get it in a sense of like, there's like a bigger reason to work on AI safety besides money, clearly. Yeah, but being able to see that people get it is uh very um somewhat rare. Somewhat rare. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Like the comment said, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make it care about the alignment problem. Yeah, but I'd
that
love to hear like other people's perspectives on this.
If I could quickly add to this, um, I think whenever there is a field, there might be the misconception that you need to be aligned with the principles of that field, and it can create this myth about it. So, effective altruism for people who are not in that ecosystem, for example, can seem like something not clearly articulated or understood outside of the EA world, and that could be a barrier for folks. When I came into the AI safety orgs and when I was applying to FAR, I did not consider myself EA, and that's not something I saw as a requirement. But what I did do was try to understand what the EA principles meant for the people that were in the ecosystem and that really upheld the principles, and how the organizations in that world also understood the impact and those ideals. So whether you're applying to fintech or, education, there's still got that context building you need to do to make that alignment actually genuine and natural, both for you and for the organization. So EA and AI safety, it's the same. And when organizations talk about their values, what they care about, the impact, the counterfactual impact, that's really the core of where the attention should go, less so EA as a term or AI safety as a term by itself. And so the organizations are spending a lot of time building out what they care about, what the orgs need in terms of skill set, value alignment, mission, and that will be reflected in the interview process as well. So I urge you to really look at those things and think about, do you care about those things as well? Where are your priorities? And if there is a true fit for you in that sense, then don't let the EA factor hinder you from applying or connecting with folks like that. And there are different communities, courses, whether it's Blue Dot, Successive, High Impact Accelerator. Those community offerings will help you get a better understanding, not only of what these orgs care about, but also for you to find the clarity within yourself, what your priorities are, and to find a better alignment from there. So I think the terms can be a hindrance, and the key point is to go beyond that and really look at what's under the hood there.
100%. I think just in general, being aligned on what you care for and pursuing the passions is realistically what form the EA or AI safety community. And the most value behind all of those big words and theses is getting community. So as Helena said, for example, go to EAG. If you're gonna go to EAG, try to go to satellite events and just try to show your face more around and be more active, even though it's a bit difficult. Again, this is one of the best things to make connections and in general integrate yourself in the field, because you can bring the value that you don't probably even know you can bring, but to scope it out and discover, you need to first kind of get the lay of the land. The next question is for Joping, especially considering the pace that Apollo has been scaling and expanding into US. What is the biggest bottleneck in organization scaling that you've encountered so far? And how does it reflect what's field needing or missing right now?
Mm-hmm. Um, I think, okay, it depends on where the org is at in the journey. There's so many new AI safety incubated ventures coming up. And then there are also orgs at the stage where Apollo is at, where we have got into like a steady state, and then there are also much bigger orgs than us. I think the biggest bottleneck for Apollo generally would be kind of evolving management structures. And as we scale, we start to look at like how we can continue to keep that level of high touch and like delegation of decision making clearer within the org that used to see it with like just a few people and you could get away with just them huddling in a room, but now you have like a team of 20. How do you make that more systematic? So something around kind of like internal coordination type of roles might be coming up. Research management type of roles might be coming up. And I think that is one. And then the second one could be with the growth of the org, then you might see more specialization. So you might see more like demand for like harder skills like HR, finance, maybe payroll when it becomes big enough, marketing, comms. So I think it really much depends on like the size and the maturity of the org.
Anyone else has anything to add? Yordanos, since you've been with FAR for quite a while as well, what interesting patterns have you seen or biggest challenges that you guys overcame?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, Something we've had to overcome, and I don't see this as distinct for FAR. I've seen it with other early stage organizations as well. Usually when you're starting out, you're tapping into your networks and your community, but then that doesn't scale. At a certain point, you have to think broadly and you have to have better pipelines and talent strategy and approach. And that's what we've had to overcome and we're still working through right now. I think I saw even with one of the questions, there's the misconception 80% of hires come from referrals. I mean, that's not going to be possible at all. And referrals don't scale because with a small team, especially, you have a smaller network to tap into. So we've had to really be thoughtful about one, the sort of skill sets we need and how to go beyond the closest circles to our individual team members and really think broadly. And so this comes into visibility. There's a lot of great work that we're doing that many people and professionals would be excited about, but they don't know that we exist, for example. So the value proposition is not just building out, what matters and what people would care about, but also meeting them where they are and making that visible. So we have built out our comps and we're still in the process of building out more, thinking more intentionally about talent proposition and that talent branding and messaging. That really matters. And so we're working through that. And we had to rely, in the past, and even with some roles still now, with inbound applicants, because we didn't have a dedicated recruiter to go out and bring the talent to us. And so we are building out our recruiting function to do that. So we're not reliant on inbound, but also we're introducing people that may not know FAR exists to the sort of opportunities that we offer. So that's been difficult. And I do see this being also similar for other orgs in the AI safety ecosystem. Unless you are in the community already, you might not know about these opportunities. So that's a big one I'm excited to tackle and really make sure folks know, hey, this is an avenue you can explore and your skills are really needed here. So come join us. So that's a big one.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Joping, do you want to move on with the next question?
Yeah, and the next question is what's the current field outlook and what we can expect things to change or exciting things that are happening now? I personally am very excited with seeing more, I suppose, like blended teams of people with good knowledge and came from like maybe an EA background, maybe through like student groups, something like what Helena has set up, and you have a lot of people who are very motivated, a lot of energy and want to enter the space, and then you have like functional mid-career switchers, people like me, who are then in a team where there's a good mix of these different views. So that's what I'm excited about, and I know that there's the residency, the generator residency, which I'm very much looking forward to being part of, or looking at who could potentially then be someone that is a good fit with the roles that I'll be hiring for, which I will share more later at the end of the session, by the end of the year. And then also Oliver is organizing like the AI safety studio that runs out of Lisa. So I'm mentoring a team and I'm working through with them on like an agent that looks at recruiting researchers or engineers that are beyond the AI safety community. So I'm excited about this kind of like structured mentorship and fellowship programs. And I think it's good. It's like about time that we invest resources and time to do more of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think in general, when you enter the field or just like start to consider AI safety, you enter it through the threat models that are usually extremely technical. A lot of them also touch on like policy and governance or socioeconomic impact, but majority of ways of mitigating around that are still rooted for more technical or researchers' backgrounds of people instead of just purely generalists. So it's often can feel very discouraging of finding your way into the field, or people assume that you have to come back with a prereq set of skills that you've developed in other jobs. This is something that I've been trying to actively break at Lisa ever since stepping into my current role, as Joping mentioned, that we've been running AI safety studio Saturdays basically throughout all of May. In general, it has received an overwhelming interest, but so we anticipate to run a few more cohorts, and I'm also excited to basically put the current projects forwards in the next week or so. But I think like I'd like to think about this as a mini, basically like generator residency for people who also in the full-time roles right now, as we understand that taking time off to purely upscale or go with a fellowship is realistically a privilege not everyone can afford to, and is mostly catered towards the early career people, early career researchers fresh out of uni that, again, is not a fit for the mid-career and senior professionals. So I've been trying to do more general community building and networking in the field, but also show people that through real problem source from real AI safety orgs, that they can build an infrastructure and have critical value to add on to the field without, again, like having too much of a research background. In general, as well, I'm very excited in Field's pivot right now towards more founder people profiles. I'm very big in general, like on founding and incubation. I'm really, really excited to see more orgs spanning in the space from, again, like very technical to strategy, risks forecasting. AI safety landscape is really big, so it's very difficult to navigate from time to time. AI safety map is probably a good start if you want to familiarize yourself more about that. But in general, I'm just excited about more founding happening in the space. And all of those orgs, again, can also act as talent amplifiers for early hires. Again, like my majority of my life has been spent around VC and early stage scale ups. And I can tell you that nothing is as important as getting your ops right and from the quite at the beginning, as well as all those roles as founders, associate, and chief of staff. I think that they will also showcase more into AI safety profiles. A very brief expansion on generator residency and background. I would like to ask Harry, what motivated you to apply for the generator? What are you most excited about? Because this is realistically the first time the non-technical upskilling entry on-ramps has been introduced in the field. And maybe there's any other exciting initiatives that you know about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel very lucky that I was getting into the field at this time because there are a lot of good opportunities. I would say, I guess when I was getting into it, I wanted to reduce X risk, and I was like, okay, if you work at a company, like they want you to like maximize shareholder value, and if you work at an AI safety org, they probably want you to reduce X risk. So like thinking very carefully about how to reduce X risk was like something I did for a few months, and I thought about this like tried to think about it from like first principles, and I was like, okay, what can I do with my skills? I like wrote a lot of career docs. I got feedback from a lot of people, and I was like, okay, I think the best thing I can do is like field building. And then like from there, I was like, okay, how do we go about this? Generator looked like a really good place to do this. But yeah, generally just like back chaining from like, I want to make the future go well. I should reduce X risk from AI. Like, what does the field need? Like, let's do that. Let's make that happen. And then like what I'm especially excited for, let's see. I think um, one interesting thing that I've been seeing is like communications, obviously, very important. It seems that our current orgs are like just not that great at communicating like really interesting findings to the public. This is something that like really doesn't take that much, it seems, but like we need people to do it. And it's just like, grunt work almost, like not even, it's just like find the interesting stuff, put it out to the public. Amazing. Now people know about this, like make it interesting. Yeah. So like I'm excited to see some people do that over this summer in Berkeley. But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to the slider questions, looking at largely most upvoted ones, and it's going to be just a free floor to all the panelists. So feel free to just like take up on whatever you feel like. Number one is, if the talent is the bottleneck, why are the organizations so hesitant to hire people outside of the ecosystem? Or whether you are seeing that they are hesitant, actually.
I can give a stab at it. So for Apollo specifically, I didn't have a AI safety background, or came from an EA background. And if I look at the rest of my team, most of us didn't as well. And maybe that is an outlier. Maybe that's the case, which is also why I think blended teams make a lot of sense in the future. I do feel like we were not opposed to people who had or strongly preferred people who had either one. It was always a bonus and a good to have for us. What we were really looking at was how you reason through a lot of the tasks that we've had, and the tasks were designed in a way that it reflected what you needed to do on the job, judgment calls and how you make decisions, and the clarity around why this is important for us, for you as the candidate to work on. So the AI safety, it was never a requirement, but it was something that would have informed you the way that you have approached your conversations and your decision making if you had strong conviction on why you think this is important to work on, because it affects how you prioritize the task during the interview. So I would say from a outcome perspective, if I look at the rest of my team, none of us were very deeply plugged into AI safety or EA. So I think that is the reference point that I have. I would say generally, orgs in this space are very intentional about impact, and what that means is that we won't be looking at filling the headcount with any warm body, and you are not just a cog in the machine. So I think there is also a question around, like, if there's going to be a bottleneck, then why is there this? Why? Yeah, exactly. So this question, right? Like, why is there, if there's already a bottleneck, why are we not? I suppose is the assumption here to lower the bar, because I think most of the orgs would um prefer to hold the bar because of the high stakes work that we do.
Yeah, and to add to that, I would say there is perhaps a higher threshold for alignment and really finding people that are committed to impact. I wouldn't say the hesitancy is about hiring people outside of the ecosystem, more so on what I mentioned about the threshold. So, what I mean by that is, for example, at FAR, similar to myself, we have many people that come from outside of the ecosystem, and that wasn't a requirement. What was a requirement, if you want to think about it that way, is a demonstrated pattern and experience to investments in maximizing or prioritizing impact over things like money, for example. And that could be a threshold that would weed out a lot of people because in AI safety, for example, there's a lot of money flowing. So you could go to startups, you could go to frontier labs that would pay you much more, and that's okay. Priorities are different for, people. But if that is the priority, then that would already be a misalignment for orgs operating in our field. So that threshold already would be a key disagreement or divergence. And then we would look at, okay, you say you care about your impact. How have you shown that? What has that meant concretely? And if you're not able to demonstrate it, then that would also be a point of divergence. So I would say those things are where a lot of people would fail or don't make the cut, but it's not about hesitancy for hiring outside of the ecosystem. And to be honest, I've hired across venture capital, startups, tech companies, growth stage, and there's still that wanting people that are committed to the company, committed to, what the company is doing, but it's not at the same level because the mission and impact is not the driving factor of those companies. Revenue is a driving factor. So if you have skills and you could really drive sales or you can operate within the environment of the startup or the company, you could get in. So with AI safety orgs, though, there is that higher threshold. So that would be something to really focus on, less than thinking you're already disqualified because you're coming from outside of the ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Next question that I'm very interested in Slido is, for people who came from outside of the community, what generated the trust signal that got you taken seriously? A project, referral, a course, or something else? I think this can be broadly scaled in what, as ecosystem insiders, do we count as high signal or high enough signal in the bar? Because especially for the generalist roles, it's often unclear how much context do you actually need on AI safety. I'm really interested to give a floor for Helena first, especially as kind of like early career person who is establishing themselves and still basically trying to fight against both like gradient of experience wise, and also understands from the like kind of like first fundamentals of your career, how do you push this value alignment and showcase your value alignment from the first principles.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a huge advantage in some sense by being a student. Like, I personally have like identified as EA since like senior year of high school, so everything that I've done in college has been motivated by EA. And like previously, like I was into like animal welfare. So even like having that signal on my resume was like, oh, okay, well, she wasn't doing AI safety stuff back then, but like she still had that like kind of thinking. And yeah, I also like in terms of like my journey, I when I first found out about, or not found out, but when I first got pretty fully convinced about AI safety, like I was already helping run the EA group at my school, and then I was doing like the X Lab fellowship or like existential risk lab like research fellowship at Chicago. So I was pretty actively doing research, and like research just forces you to upskill or like get more context, and not just about like the ecosystem, which is part of the context that you would really want in a generalist, but also just like the very technical arguments, which I also think is very important. And kind of what you're talking about, Yordanos, is that um yeah, like even in generalist work, there's always kind of a sense of research, or not always, but like there are big questions that it is your job to answer. And while that not might not look like hard ML research, kind of being sharp on that does count for something. Yeah, and then so I guess I was exposed to the ideas when I was very like receptive to them, and I was like, wow, I'm not doing anything else, so I'm just gonna go all in technical research. And yeah, so like in terms of programs I did, like I did um that, and then I did SPAR. I also helped like organize SPAR like with Kairos, and realized that I liked the back end stuff a lot more, and I was like, okay, let me give this one more shot. Like I think that like maybe research management seems cool. Like maybe my job isn't, or like my best role isn't as like an IC or like individual contributor. I can like help manage people, which I really just like people. And yeah, also did not really like it that much. And so, yeah, I think at least for people that are more like university slash early career stage, like having tests like that is helpful. And doing things fast is important. Like if there's like a 2 year gap or like a like 6 months even, it's like, well, like, I don't know how long your timelines are, but like yeah, if you could try to be aggressive-ish in like pursuing AI safety things, even if it's not like a traditional job, which is, you can't always land a job. Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah. And also just doing things to figure out whether you're gonna like the thing or not. In the EA land, they call it cheap tests. But yeah.
Oliver, I think there's some questions in the group chat that were asking about um how like some of us are saying that EA experience is required and some of us are saying that actually it's not. Like how do we address that?
Yeah. I think EA experience is not required necessarily. As mentioned, a lot of our panelists have not come from EA background before, or were not exposed to EA community beforehand a lot. I personally was in like my university EA association a while ago during undergrad. But I cannot tell you, for example, that EA has played a major part in my career on transitioning into AI safety. It happened completely independently, for example. So therefore, I do not credit EA as giving me additional context or any type of acceleration for AI safety per se. I think being interested in AI safety by default aligns you with EA. And again, like this is all just labels, and this is it just basically how you would like to use it, or how you would like to impose it. A lot of people are incredibly EA pilled. A lot of people are EA adjacent, and it's okay. Again, this should not be a requirement that you see. In terms of the context in general, into like OAI safety, because I see a lot of people saying, especially on the generator, being asked what contributions to AI safety or background in AI safety you possessed previously, despite it being officially advertised as being light touch. I think that people conflate different signals here. So you are not required to publish a paper being an AI researcher, or having tons of experience. Again, like for example, before I left my PhD program in physics, I was a physicist all my life and basically did VC as well. Not even though everything throughout my life was integrated with AI, nothing was showcasing the AI safety part of it. And that's completely okay. This is not what got me currently in my career pivot, right? I think that when especially I was applying quite early to orgs, or in my case fellowships, because I at the same time still doing technical research, and I continue doing technical research alongside the field building, because for me personally, I believe that those are two major ways I can make the most impact, and therefore, unless one significantly overtakes the other, I just continue in both lanes so far, while I also can run on little sleep at the same time. But when I was just applying for fellowships like Mars, ERA, that I was very grateful to do, I had very little to show for myself, because the reality is that skills that were translatable from, again, like something like physics PhD were very limited, and I was competing with a lot of pool of applicants. When you see things like what's your background in AI safety, etc., if you're naturally interested in this, don't underestimate your passion, because most likely you read a bunch of things. By reading a bunch of things, you also form a better understanding of the field. You form your own opinions that you can either and want to showcase through stuff like Substack, Less Wrong, and just share your opinions in the open in general. Like speaking out in the open or building in the open in more technical terms is something that's critically underrated, because the proof of work is, I guess, very synonymous to right now to success, or goes way beyond your CV on LinkedIn profile very often. So there are so many ways, if you genuinely have a passion for something, to show your interest. Like I was literally just writing up about like a paper that I was fascinated by in misalignment, and developing my own theories through that, which actually brought me again to then discuss it in my final interview in ERA, because someone who read my application was fascinated by just the thought process there. Again, so did I have anything to show for myself? Broadly, no. Therefore, someone may look at my profile initially and argue that I have very little AI safety context. In reality, again, I'm a strong believer that people's passions shine through unexpected things, and it's a matter of getting yourself out there. Similar with the referral problem, I think even though it exists to some extent in the field 100%. I also think that building social connections is a skill. Pitching yourself is a skill that is super underrated in your life. And in all the industries, even that is not AI safety, and even more so in non-AI safety or like non-EA fields, is something that will carry you throughout all of your life. If you express passion, commitment, and the mindset that you can just do things, and you're willing to apply yourself as much as you can, it will get you really, really far. And just trust me on this.
Can I add on something from here? Oh, Yordanos, do you want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to share one, just a pause. I think possibly many of the people in the audience might have been in the job search part for a while, so it could be frustrating. And I can understand the interest to want to know, oh, what are the secrets? What are the ways to get to, where we might be, for example. But one, compassion to where you are. I've been in the job search, time of my life as well, and it feels frustrating. Sometimes you're applying to roles that you feel are a good fit and you get rejected. or you don't get feedback. So it's a very frustrating process, and I just want to acknowledge that. What I hope it doesn't veer into, if you're in that process for yourself, is one, you don't get into just apply everywhere, see what comes back mindset. That will get you into spending a lot of time without much of a return on that investment. But I do understand why it might seem like it's the best strategy sometimes. And then two, if you're thinking, oh, there is some secret I need to get this job or to get into that ecosystem, that can also be a bit myopic and can block you from seeing how you could really show your passion and your interest, like Oliver was saying. So the recommendation here is more so one, the orgs that we're a part of and that are part of, the EA ecosystem or AI safety, they really care about seeing that you care about what they're caring about. And that's not very different from other companies or orgs. Someone was asking, oh, do I need to go to EAG? That seems like a requirement. It's networking. You do networking for any industry, and each industry has its own specific networking events, platforms, communities. AI safety has the same, EA has the same. So if that is what you really care about, then look for those and really show your commitment, your involvement. You're actively thinking about those things, whether you're writing about it like Oliver is saying, or you're involved in other ways. That is how you're demonstrating your interest. But do it because it makes sense for you. If you're interested in something else, you look for those connection points that are genuine and natural to that ecosystem as well. So that's very consistent across different fields and domains. Beyond that, this is a big thing I want to share with everyone. Please don't use AI when you are applying to jobs. It is very counterproductive to what you want to accomplish. On the other side, we can tell when a CV is written by AI, when application questions are answered by AI, and that actually is a disservice to you because you don't get to show your genuine self and your skills in that. It's very copy paste. For example, FAR, we have an AI filter, and we could see when it's an AI that wrote and applied that. So be very targeted and deliberate. And whether it's an expression of interest you're filling out or an application or a connection request you're sending out, make it come from you and optimize for those best connections.
I agree. I think that having seen my fair share of applications, I think it's reasonable for candidates to use AI to enable them to think about ideas or correct grammar or formatting and things like that. But I think we want to hear and see like your real views about certain things. And I think one failure mode that I'm seeing in the group chat that might come up is also like treating like, say, for example, blue dot courses as like a checkbox requirement. And I really don't think that's a good way to think about it. It's not about completing how many blue dot courses, but really having the conviction that you actually care about these things. So I would say be mindful of that. I think one observation that I have is also coming from more of like the corporate setting is that I feel that it is by design that like getting into operations and generalist jobs in other orgs have traditionally been easier, and I don't know if it's because of the level of importance or impact that organizations feel that operations role would have. But in AI safety, like operations as a career is seen as a multiplier and is seen as people who make important decisions. And so I would say that the bar is like clear and high for like good reasons. And I would say the expectation would be also not to see that like the like how you would apply to a normal operations job might not necessarily feel the same with how you apply to a high impact org, for example.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think in terms of like Joping made a really good point of not covering, like not treating, for example, like blue dot course or like any other alternatives as like a checkbox or tick box. In reality, you're not competing to showcase credentials for yourselves. And I think when someone tries to kind of like stack load credentials is very much more evident than people would like to admit it is. Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. Harry, do you want to take a board on that?
Yeah, I think for the last one, we'll just be like, can you walk us through like a day in your life, like what you actually do, operations, these things? Let's go around.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm currently part-time at Constellation because I have school. So I'm remote. I would much prefer to be in person. I think in person is way better just for speed and for the community. Yeah, like being around smart people just really propels you, or ambitious people. But yeah, besides that, I like have lots of meetings and plan the things everyone should be doing. And I guess this all sounds pretty vague, but it's decently substantial of my time. Like more and more too, like using Cloud Code or Cowork to automate things. I think that's like also something to be mindful of as you're like, oh, I want to be a good generalist. But more applications and things have like proficiency with Cloud Code because yeah, if everyone in the org is using it, not just the researchers, and yeah, being fast does matter.
I can go. So we are still busy hiring. So what that means is that, I'm setting up like a 48-hour kind of like turnaround with most of the candidates, making sure that their interviews are done, the interviewers put in their feedback, and understanding and calibrating across like who we are going to make offers. Um, really getting high touch with the hiring managers, sharing with them like what I'm getting a sense of from the pipeline, how healthy is it, how on track with our targets, and then a big part around like people ops, so kind of like internal, like having lunch with people, understanding how a newcomer is doing on their job. And I just had that 15-minute session, end of the week check-in with the new hire, where I gave them prompts and asked them how their second week can be better. And then also looking at like San Francisco expansion. So thinking about the systems we need in place, how do we operate there, as someone who is new, hiring in the scene, the processes, the insurance that needs to be set up. And I would say every day looks different. What stays the same is the speed and the agency. There's no one just telling me what to do, or like I'm not waiting for people to give me permission in general. I see that there's a gap, there's a problem, there's a new insight that I can surface. I'm doing that.
Quickly chiming in from my end, people operations has a variety of layers, so no day is the same. But some things that will be part of my days will be working on visa processing for our hires that might be in the US or outside the US. Retreat planning, we bring our team together twice a year. So our mid-year retreat is coming up in June, and that takes up quite a bit of operational bandwidth. And also working on our onboarding and offboarding, as well as supporting our hiring managers and building out their teams, not only from the hiring front, but also thinking through their org designs and succession planning and really partnering with them on that. And ad hoc requests that come through as well. So it's a lot of context switching and jumping in where needed.
Yeah, and just quickly chime in on my side. I am just mostly running around and take upon again like anything that floats in the air for Lisa right now. We've been quite busy, obviously, with EAG organizations. The fact that we're scaling up massively as well. So I'm basically, as a special projects head, I think about talent mobilization and ecosystem convening majority of my time. So how to get best new high caliber talent in who have not had historically so much exposure to the field, particularly mid to senior career generalists. This is why I've been running the networking events, AI Safety Studio, to curriculum of which and check-ins with like project teams have been like going on a significant chunk of my time. It's also just a bunch of like organizational moments and alignment with broader Lisa team on our current needs and the growth of the hub. And for example, I've been organizing a hackathon that we're going to host on 13th of June in London, which will be having both technical and non-technical track to building your own on-ramps on AI safety. So again, it's quite a big creative freedom there, and no day is the same per usual. I'm gonna give a floor to Harry to wrap up, and just gonna also share a couple of resources that you can stay in touch with orgs and all of us throughout this. As for example, Joping mentioned, there's going to be expression of interest available for operations. For Constellation, it's info about Generator Residency, and FAR also has a couple of open positions, I think.
Yeah, that will be up on the screen soon. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks everyone for attending too. Let's see, there we go. We've got some QR codes. Yeah, if you're newer to AI safety, you want to build context. Blue Dot has lots of events, lots of courses in this. You should check out one of our reading groups. Eval's reading group is happening. That is going to be running Tuesday. I sent the link in the chat. And yeah, thank you so much once again. This talk will be uploaded to the Blue Dot YouTube, and I will send a link to that. But yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone so much.
Can we put it in the slide show mode so it's a bit bigger for people to scan the code, please?
I think it is.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Ollie. Yeah.
Sorry, unsure if I can do it bigger.
I will also send out a blast with all of these links afterward. So just check your email and you'll have all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.